All right, welcome back, everybody, to another show of Flyway Connections. My name is Chris. I'm here with my buddy Joe. Joe.
Hey, how you guys all doing today? So
All right.
today we have.
Go ahead, man.
So today on the show we have Derrick Davis from Ducks Unlimited out here in Louisiana, and Mike. I don't want to butcher your name too much. Barsher. I probably butchered that. Brazier. My apologies, Mike Brazier.
Yeah, don't worry, he can't read.
Yeah, I can't read.
That's the reason he joined the army. But go ahead.
How you guys all doing today?
Doing well. Good to be here.
All right. So as far as roles, and because both of you work with DU, as far as y'all's roles, what is exactly do you do, Derrick? And then after Derrick, if you can follow Mike, correct? Okay.
Yeah, so I am a regional director here in Southwest Louisiana. I work with local communities in Southwest Louisiana to grow the volunteer committee. And once we grow that committee, every year they host 1, 2, and sometimes even 3 events. The committee that Mike used to be a part of here in Lafayette, the Lafayette committee actually had 4 events. So the number of events you hold is not, there's no cap on it. But in the Southwest Louisiana, I'm in charge of working with about 900 volunteers that are within my region, and we raise anywhere between 900 and about 100, $1.7 million, depending on the economy and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so I'm currently in my position a waterfowl scientist for Ducks Unlimited. I'm officed here in Memphis, Tennessee, out of our national headquarters. I've been in this position for a couple of years, and in this position, and I'm going to pause right here and just let y'all know that this happens to be a day when they're doing some yard work outside. So I don't know if I'm going to have a lawnmower or a leaf blower come by, but I apologize if any of that happens. But
you're good.
So in my current position, I provide just additional science capacity, waterfowl science capacity, to our national headquarters for a variety of reasons. We, as most folks will know, Ducks Unlimited is an organization that bases our conservation decisions on the best available science, and as such, we invest a fair amount in actually supporting science, as well as hiring scientists that stay up to date on that type of information and help provide guidance on our conservation decisions. In each of our regions within Ducks Unlimited, we have scientists, several science staff that do that represent the science within our conservation decisions, sort of at the regional level, but we also need a strong science foundation back here at national headquarters. I interact with our regional science staff. I interact with researchers from various universities to help us identify important questions and then conduct the research to get the answers to those questions that then inform our conservation delivery. I also, as Derrick mentioned here, I think before we came online, that I am more recently involved with some science communication for Ducks Unlimited, one of which includes our Ducks Unlimited podcast, some of which includes writing articles for the magazine, some of which includes other science reports, updating our members and supporters on the type of work that we are supporting and using to inform our conservation decisions. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years, plus a whole host of other things. You're just kind of being the person that a lot of folks go to here at the national headquarters when they have questions about waterfowl ecology and so forth, which is a really fun part of the job. Prior to that, for 13 years, I was in Lafayette, Louisiana, working again in a science role, supporting regional conservation efforts. But that was pretty cool because it allowed me to really get to know coastal Louisiana, coastal Texas, and then coastal Mississippi and Alabama, and the importance of that region for waterfowl. So I've been in the area where a lot of your audience is there in Louisiana for a number of years, and so excited for the opportunity to speak with y'all.
Okay, nice. So that's actually something that I've always wanted to get a biologist actually on the show. And I'm glad that we were able to get one, because obviously I'm not the smartest guy either. There's no science that I know. I guess me and Joe kind of go off of what we see in the sky. And how the birds are acting. So I guess the only question I have for you, when it comes to the flyways, we're getting a lot of conversation, even people telling us that the Central Flyway is basically becoming the Mississippi Flyway when it comes to birds and the amount of birds that are going through that flyway. Do you see any difference in the flyways as far as like shifts or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a rather common question. Now, there's a whole bunch of other questions associated with that general topic that we always get. And, I have to start by saying when we get questions like that from the perspective of making decisions or making assessments of what's going on. I talked about Ducks Unlimited as a science-based organization. So are all of our partners at the state and federal level and other nonprofits. We make decisions and make assessments based on what the data tell us. So when somebody asks me that question, I first have to think about, well, what data do we have to assess whether that is really happening? It's one thing to go out and make an observation in the particular area where you hunt or where you spend most of your time during fall and winter. It's another thing entirely to be able to collect data from across a large region in a very representative way, in an unbiased way, and then look at that data and draw conclusions based on what that data is telling you. And so, yeah, we do hear people saying that the migration is shifting west. There are more ducks moving over into the Central Flyway. The fact of the matter is, at least based on the information or the analyses I think that people have attempted to look at thus far, is that there does not seem to be any type of long-term systematic shift in birds from the Mississippi Flyway into the Central Flyway. Now, if you took 2 or 3 recent years and looked at the data, and I don't know if this is the case or not, but I'm just saying hypothetically, if you looked at the data, whether it be midwinter survey data, whether it be harvest data, band recovery data, and if it showed a shift in the last 2 or 3 years into the Central Flyway, proportionally so, I can tell you it's not going to be a big shift. I would be confident of that. But 2 or 3 years, or 3 or 4 years, doesn't make for a long-term trend. And I think that's really what the question needs to be rooted in. Are we seeing a long-term shift in one particular direction or the other? And I just don't think we have any data to suggest that right now. Part of the challenge with that, though, is just being able to have data from across that entire region. There aren't very many data sets that we have to look at that, to answer that question in an objective way. I mentioned a couple of them. Harvest data and then band recovery data would be 2 potential sources. Midwinter survey data would not be the best data set to use, because for most states, it's collected only at a single point in time, and birds move around. They move around throughout the winter. So there's a lot going on there. But I think the short answer, to kind of summarize that, is that based on any of the data that we've seen, analyses that we've heard about thus far, there's not any type of long-term shift into the Central Flyway.
Okay, so it's just kind of like spontaneous. Just to break it down, it's not really something that we can actually say, oh, they're doing a shift. It's just because of the data is not out there. From my understanding, from what you said, past 3 years or something, we can't really make a definite analysis about that, correct?
Yeah, and I'm not sure, if I'm being totally honest, I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure who all is seriously looking at that question right now. There are waterfowl biologists in every state, and some of them may have done some preliminary analyses, but it wouldn't take very much to look at some harvest data or band recovery data, and I would be really surprised if you saw a meaningful shift into the Central Flyway. And if we did, again, that could be driven simply by the way habitat conditions unfolded during those years. That's, if you look back through time, you're always going to find some years where there was greater harvest in the Central Flyway or greater harvest in in Kansas than in Texas on a proportional basis, or greater harvest in California than in Arkansas. And
Yeah.
those types of single year or even 2 or 3 year events don't necessarily translate to a long-term shift. That's the thing that we just kind of have to keep in mind, is that there's nothing constant when we're talking about migratory waterfowl. So
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
go ahead, Joe.
so just to go kind of off that question. Well, we do have a lot of guests, because 90% of our guests are here from the state of Louisiana. A lot of the guys talk about back in the day where we'd have straps, they'd have straps of greenheads and all that. Like I said, I've been hunting here for the last 4 years, and I mean, I don't think there's a decrease in ducks, but I would say, I mean, my typical down here, we don't kill as many mallards as people said they did 20 years ago or not. I mean, I think from me, I think like I'm mostly killing a lot of divers, various puddle ducks, like maybe gadwall and teal, like an occasional mallard here and there, and some pintails. But yeah, a lot of divers down here.
Yeah, I think too, like especially this past season, the hurricanes, all the hurricanes that passed through Louisiana. I mean, I'm sure that makes an effect with the birds that are trying to come down here, and where they shift. So it's something that we're curious about. But
if I could follow up on that, because that is an important distinction. Whenever the question that we were talking about initially there was, is the migration shifting west? And that's sort of a different question from, if we're talking about the Mississippi and Central Flyway here,
Yeah.
this podcast and the likely audience. That's a different question than, are there fewer ducks coming to South Louisiana or South Texas? Because we're kind of talking about an east-west type thing versus north-south. And look, there's growing evidence that there are changes on the landscape that are influencing the timing of migration north to south, and certainly for some species, how far south they're more likely to come on average. This is a really complex topic that we could chew up 2 hours talking about. So I'll try not to.
Yeah, let's not do that.
But yeah, you are exactly right. You can look back at the data and find some species, such as mallards and Canada geese, or another example. Two species that are very cold hardy. The number of Canada geese and mallards that you see in South Louisiana nowadays is not what it used to be. I mean, I don't think anyone who spends a lot of the time in the marsh is going to try to argue otherwise. So yes, there are some changes that we're seeing in terms of the timing of migration from a north-south perspective for some species. There are changes in sort of the likely terminal destination for some species, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Climate is one of those. It's warmer than it used to be on average. There's always year-to-year variation, and we're going to occasionally get some years where things are like the good old days. Those years are probably going to be fewer and farther between. But yeah, there's no doubt that there are some changes in when certain duck species are migrating and how far south they're likely to come during certain years. And I think the easiest thing for me to say is that the waterfowl management community is doing its best right now to try to identify how those factors are changing and how they're influencing waterfowl migration. And then be able to communicate that to our supporters, to our hunters, to help them understand what's going on, because there's nothing more frustrating than seeing something happen and not having a good explanation for it. And so there's a lot of work going on right now to try to summarize what actually is happening, and then try to explain why it is happening. And then if there's anything that we can do about it. These are migratory birds. They respond to a dynamic landscape, to a dynamic environment. They have always changed in terms of what they do and when they do it, and we're seeing some of that right now in terms of a few of the things that we've talked about here. So
yeah, so I mean, I'm a duck hunter. I'm gonna kill divers the same. I'm gonna kill mallards, and obviously, I think for people hunting down here, and especially new hunters, to be successful, you got or to consider a successful season is that's the duck you're gonna have to go for. If you're gonna come down here and kill ringnecks, kill bluebills, lucky enough to kill canvasbacks and all that. But I know you guys don't have any of the data back from the 21 season, maybe not even the 1920 season, but the 18 and 19 season. What ducks did you guys see harvest mostly here in Louisiana?
Oh, I'll be honest. I don't have those data handy. Yeah, it'd take me a minute to find those. What I can tell you is that on average, the ducks that you're going to see harvested most in Louisiana are going to be gadwall, blue-winged teal, maybe it's gadwall, green-winged teal, and I forget which one. Blue-winged teal, shovelers, some of those others are going to be around number 3 or 4. I forget exactly how they rank out. But gadwall and green-winged teal, I think, are usually the number 1 and number 2. It's been a long time since mallard was number 1 in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, and especially for me, some of the questions that, I mean, like for me, for instance, I think the big thing is for some of our listeners who are new waterfowlers, I think it's the fact that, like for me, I want to know, okay, what's going to be there, what I'm trying to target, because whether I like it, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but I've there's ducks that I have not got to harvest yet. So those ducks are ones that I want to go ahead, because I am new to this. I don't have the experience that Joe has, but I think this question kind of caters to the newer waterfowlers. Like, okay, well, where am I going to find this puddle duck, or where am I going to find this diver or bluebill, or where am I going to find? And obviously some of those questions are easy. You can find most of your divers along the coast and the Pacific Flyway or in the East Coast or whatever. But I think for the new waterfowler, this way it kind of helps them with the questions. Now, I know all this data that you're giving us. Is there something on DU or their site that the listeners or anybody who is new to waterfowl can kind of see what are the patterns of these migrant birds through DU?
Well, in terms of harvest data, you can find reports from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I actually was able to, while y'all were talking, I was able to pull up a couple of these. Their migratory bird hunting activity and harvest is sort of the lead into each of these titles. The Fish and Wildlife Service produces these reports annually. If you're interested in harvest trends, or I should say harvest estimates, that's the best place to look. It breaks it down by state and by flyway. And getting back to the question just a minute ago, it's gadwall, green-winged teal, and then blue-winged teal have recently been the top 3 most harvested species. Wood duck pops up there occasionally, but so that's the best place to go for harvest data. And I'm sure you could just Google this, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service waterfowl harvest data, and you're going to get close to it. We don't have anywhere on our site where we maintain these data sets, and any of the other stuff that I mentioned earlier in terms of the biologists that we're working with to try to understand what may be what changes may be occurring with waterfowl migration, and what are the different influences on that. Those are kind of ongoing, active science discussions or science research projects. So no, we don't have anything like on our website that people could peruse.
We do have some tools, Chris, online. It's just go to www.ducks.org. There's a lot of hunting tools on there that has different articles about public land, access to public land. Even here in Louisiana, we have a map on there that shows all the locations in Louisiana where we've done projects that are on WMAs. So some of that stuff is, it's a great tool. It might not be as specific as what you're looking for, but there's some great tools on that to be up for any kind of new hunter. Articles that Mike might have written, or other scientists have written on different different topics for waterfowl hunters, veterans or new hunters.
So, I think this actually goes to my next question. So I think one of the biggest issues, like for me, for instance, I didn't grow up waterfowling. I did other type of hunting. Joe kind of got me into it. I fell in love with it. Long story short, because Joe gets tired of me saying that over and over in this podcast. So, and he has buddies also that didn't grow up waterfowling. He has buddies who bought all kinds of waterfowl stuff, but never had the opportunity to have somebody take them out to waterfowl. Valor and Honor Outdoors is a great organization that helps service members. But even just for the normal Joe new waterfowler, because I'm involved, I'm a member of DU here in Texas. How can they get involved without, I guess, being uncomfortable? Is there something that DU does to kind of help? Hey, look, these are some tactics. These are some skills that you may need. These are people you may want to meet, or these are different guides that can be very, very helpful. Something for the new waterfowler that's just going out there who doesn't know another waterfowler. And the only reason I say that is because Joe, when he was in North Carolina, he had somebody in his platoon that bought all this waterfowl stuff, wanted a waterfowl, did not know anything about waterfowling, but he had this stuff. Come to find out, he knows that Joe waterfowls, and he must have been sitting on all this stuff for months, right? Before he actually went
almost
out.
I guess what he's trying to get is like a new hunter mentor program, right?
Yeah, something like that, like a mentor program.
We don't really have a mentor program. Per se. What we do have is a lot of the people that are just, I can speak the Army. I was in Virginia for 4 years before I was here as a regional director. And I got to work with the Pentagon chapter and a lot of service members there, and same here for Fort Polk. So a lot of times those members, be a serviceman or just a new person to the community, will join a committee, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for some camaraderie with some local brothers and sisters that have that same common ground, because most of our volunteers are hunters. So those individuals are going to be more apt to understand the language, understand the talk of what's going on, especially there in a local community. If you're living there in Leesville, people are going to know in the area where to go. Don't waste your time here. So that's where a lot of these individuals, young and old, men and women, are coming into the committees on Products Unlimited to learn those areas, and they end up becoming and meeting friends with a lot of people, and it becomes a family. It becomes a DU family, and they end up a lot of times hunting with each other.
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing too. I do agree with. Like recently, we'll see. I'll actually go. I don't know if you are going to go to that convention that you are having in Louisiana.
The national convention.
Yeah.
New Orleans.
Is that the one? It's in New Orleans, Joe, or?
There's one. I think the regionals in Lafayette. I was told. I know you guys are having another one in New Orleans this year. Nationals.
I was trying to see what your state conventions in Lafayette in July, the national conventions in September in New Orleans.
Yeah, because in June I'll actually go to the DU Expo here at Texas Motor Speedway. So
I'll be there also.
Oh, nice. I might have to. I volunteered to run the shotgun.
I'll be there.
Shotgun booth.
Yeah.
You'll be at the shot.
I'll be there as well. Not at the shotgun deal, but at the we're going to have a conservation village there at DU Expo, and so I will be. I'll be there. So.
Oh yeah, I got an email actually for the conservation village too, but I had already. I don't know how y'all send out those emails, but a gentleman from the shotgun. Yeah, a gentleman got in contact with me. He's like, hey. I saw, you have whatever, and he's like, you want to do shotguns? Like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So I'll be up there for that. So hopefully I get to see y'all. And
yeah, well, we'll have to make a point of doing that. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a
big show.
Yeah,
it's going to be a big deal. I got family members and a bunch of other. I told Joe to come up, but he's I'm
gonna try. I'm still stuck here. I'm still in active duty. It's kind of harder to break away sometimes.
Yeah, I'm kind of out, so it's easier for me.
Yeah, that's coming up pretty quick, isn't it? It's like next month, I believe.
Yeah, so next month they want us to go I guess do like some type of orientation, and then from there it goes. I think it's the 29th, I believe. January 29th is when it is.
See, we're gonna have to get the dates here now.
No, it's 26th to the 28th.
26th is
28th. Yeah. 25th to the 27th is the dates. The Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. I'll be there all 3 days. So that's fun. Hopefully we get to see each other, and this we can kind of get together and talk a little bit more, but off record. Okay, so I get what DU does. And I guess the questions that we kind of want is kind of to cater to not just service members, first responders, but also that new waterfowler, because I know how intimidating it can be to get in there. It was for me, but luckily I had somebody who could help me. As far as, do you guys ever get information on guides, or do you guys work with guides? Is there anything that DU does with guides in that aspect?
There's some guides that support us. There's people, that call me as, staff that, where's the local guy? I can tell you some people that I've hunted with, but I mean, it's not going to be a recommendation coming from Ducks Unlimited. Most of my hunting is done on my own. I don't go pay a guide. I would rather go out and enjoy time afield with my family and doing it on my own. So I don't enjoy that, but we do not have specific guides that are tied to Ducks Unlimited. That's not the field that we're in. We do support hunting, but it's not supporting specific guides and locations.
One of the things I'll add here, and it's going to depend on who the audience is here for the podcast, but we have avenues for people to get involved with the waterfowling community, multiple avenues through which people can get involved with the waterfowling community, and that's through our different chapters. We have chapters at the varsity level. I don't know how widespread these are in Louisiana and Texas. I know there's a few here in Tennessee, and they're just trying to ramp up some of that. These basically high school chapters, and then university chapters as well. So if there's anyone listening to this that's interested in waterfowl hunting or getting involved in it, those are going to be outstanding ways to meet like-minded people and make friends with people that may already be waterfowl hunters. And Chris, just as you talked about how Joe was very influential in you becoming a waterfowl hunter, that is really important, because it can be a type of hunting that is a little difficult. It takes some time to learn, takes time to know what kind of gear you need and where to go. So the fastest way to, like many things, the fastest way to get involved, to get engaged, is going to be to make connection with someone who is already a waterfowl hunter and who can advise you on those types of things. So for the younger crowd, depending on their age, we have our high school chapters, we have our university chapters. And then if anyone is already out of high school or university, our regular chapters are also a great place to find people that are like-minded. Derrick, I'm sure you have a ton of examples of people that have contacted you and wanted to, maybe they're new to an area and they want to figure out where to hunt and how to get better experience at hunting, and they just want to get involved with the DU committee as a volunteer. That's a great way to speed up the process of learning how to become a waterfowler.
Yeah, and I think the volunteering thing actually is something that kind of helped me too. Volunteering. Actually, one thing, I don't know, you might know, I've actually tried to look and I couldn't find any volunteering for any of the reservoirs or any waterfowl biologist stuff that they need assistance with. Like, I've tried looking for that. I couldn't find anything here. I'm sure there is in different areas. Do you
like some of the banding programs?
Yeah, some of the banding programs where I can just go and help the biologists up there. And I think one thing with me is I kind of, and I don't know, maybe Joe kind of gets a sense of it, but I kind of want to know what the ducks are doing, especially when it comes to like fishing. It's just like fishing, match the hatch, kind of get that the fish will act a certain way at certain times in certain areas. And that's something that I'm not knowledgeable about. And that's something I do want to get knowledgeable about, why they do this, why they act this way. So, but I'll keep looking into that. Do you know any of volunteer going on to help biologists, or at the top of your head? If not, don't worry about it. I can look.
Uh, that's going to be a very site-specific type of issue, and sometimes researchers or state waterfowl biologists will offer volunteer opportunities. As you know, Ducks Unlimited does not get involved with a lot of the banding operations that you talk about unless we are working, with the people that are doing those. Ducks Unlimited, we don't have biologists that lead any of those banding efforts.
Hmm.
So from that standpoint, we're not we don't coordinate any volunteer opportunities around that. And in terms, yeah, the other volunteer opportunities with Ducks Unlimited would be real hit or miss, and
Hmm.
there's no standard opportunity, I guess I would say, from a waterfowl biology kind of volunteer standpoint within Ducks Unlimited. Social media would trying to figure out, yeah, trying to identify
Yeah.
places or opportunities on social media might be one opportunity. I don't know. It's just not a whole lot of that out there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
It comes and goes. I mean, there's opportunities here in Southwest Louisiana, sometimes doing marsh grass plantings. Before the hurricane, they were doing a
yeah,
lot of stuff with NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And they were doing a lot of that stuff in that Lake Charles area, doing some new project and restoration stuff. So that kind of ebbs and flows depending on what projects they're doing. And then sometimes some of the local banding guys have gotten a hold of me and said, hey, send out an e-blast, for I need help tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock,
yeah,
So sometimes those requests don't come in a very timely manner. Last year I got one on Christmas Eve. Hey, I need 40 people to come help me.
yeah,
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
to help you
yeah.
on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good example there, Derek. The marsh grass plantings, and that's kind of what I was meaning whenever I said maybe look on social media for volunteer opportunities. The group that One of the groups that, at least in Louisiana, that's responsible for a lot of those kind of volunteer opportunities is I think it's the Coastal Restoration Coalition of Louisiana, CRCL,
Hmm.
and so they oftentimes will post, a volunteer opportunity to help plant marsh grasses on some restoration project, and so yeah, it's real site specific, and exactly as Derek said, comes and goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to DU, how long have you guys actually been with DU? Have y'all been with them for a while, or is it?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, let's see. It's going on 18 years now. Is that
Hmm.
right?
Oh
No, no,
wow.
no, 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 no. My math
That's
was wrong.
right.
It's late in the day. My math was wrong. It's it's going on 16 years.
Okay, yeah.
13 years in Lafayette, and going on 3 years here in Memphis. It feels like 17 years, given how 2020 went.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's where I am,
Okay.
about 16.
Yeah, I'm working on 14 years. I was in Virginia for 4 years as a regional director on the East Coast, and that's where I got my really knowledge and base of the waterfowling heritage on the East Coast. I'm originally from Georgia, where we struggled a lot of times harvesting
Hmm.
waterfowl. There was a lot of sunrises and sunsets of just seeing wood ducks flying the treetops. But I made the move and moved to Louisiana and Southwest Louisiana, and that this July will be 10 years I've been here in Southwest Louisiana. So almost 14 years, all as a regional director,
Oh,
just
nice.
fundraising for Ducks Unlimited, and many more to come, I hope.
Yeah. One thing I'll follow up on there, Derek is probably the same way I am. When people ask us that question, we instinctively think that they're asking about our employment with Ducks Unlimited, and I think that's what both Derek and I responded to there. But if you're asking about just our overall involvement with Ducks Unlimited, it goes
Yeah.
back a much farther than that.
Further.
My
Yeah.
dad, I can tell stories about my dad as an area chairman. As a matter of fact, I have a hat of his up here,
Oh, nice.
back probably from the late 70s or early 80s. And so I grew up as a Green Wing and have been a DU member for a long, long time. There was probably a few years in there where I lapsed, but no, I've been involved with some chapters several places along the way, and so Ducks Unlimited has been a part of my life as long as I can remember.
Nice, nice. Hey, Derrick,
I kind of got my feet wet with Ducks Unlimited starting a satellite chapter in South Georgia. It's the Abram Baldwin Agricultural College, along with the University of Georgia. We started a collegiate chapter down there, and that's kind of where I got my feet wet. And that was probably in 2002, 2004,
nice.
around there.
So it's kind of off topic. And I kind of do this every now and then. I got like ADD or something, but so I'm not only waterfowl, I love it, but I'm also a football fan. You a Dogs fan, Derrick?
I graduated from University of Georgia.
Oh, okay. So you're a Dogs
fan. If I could turn my camera, I'd show you my diploma.
Nice.
We don't need to do that. This is a family-friendly show, Derrick.
I can't get too mad at you, Mike. At least you're a Bulldog.
That's right.
Oh, you a State fan?
A Mississippi State. That's right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So we grew up Aggie fans, so we play on the West all the time. So
yeah.
But hopefully the season gets fun. So it's exciting. But anyway, so let's move on because I kind of went off topic. So we kind of heard everything, opportunities. I think it was a good thing and I think for me, especially for people that like get to hear, okay, what is really DU all about? Because to be honest, I maybe saw a couple pamphlets of DU when I was younger. Friends would have magazines or something. And I kind of blew it off because, like I said, I didn't waterfowl hunt. I did other type of hunting. But then when I looked into it, there was some research. There was some stuff that I did like in volunteer opportunities. I think one thing I would say to the listeners, take advantage of those volunteer opportunities. You're going to meet great people. You're going to listen. You're going to interact with people who are also new waterfowlers. I know I did. And I think that's the biggest step. And if you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that is the biggest step for somebody who wants to get into waterfowl, because it's not something that, for me, it's not easy to get because I don't know too many waterfowlers here in North Texas. I mean, I know a lot of them now because of the podcast and all this, but they're kind of out in the woodwork. So, and it's a different lifestyle. It's a grind. I will say that. I mean, I'm sure you guys know it's a grind, especially when you're pulling out decoys and you don't have your own private land where you can leave your decoys out there. You just got to haul them every time. So
it is.
Joe, did you have anything?
Yeah, I had a couple. So talking about, we were talking about earlier with the Green Wing program. I said, talking about your hat, like I'm gonna grab. This is the Green Wing hat from 1992, and I attended my first Green Wing event as a kid. So the Green Wing and DU has been a big, huge part of my life. I grew up all in until I joined the military. Moved a lot. But what program or recruitment programs? Because waterfowl is kind of like on a decline of hunters. So for kids growing up now, what are some of the big recruitment and big it's more towards Derrick, big youth events around the U.S., around Louisiana for like the Green Wing programs?
I'll answer something before I dive off in that. One, you had mentioned that waterfowl hunters on the decline in Louisiana. I mean, it seems like we do still have a pretty good group of people that are waterfowl hunting here in Louisiana. But alluding to that, within DU, we're seeing a lot more people outside of just hunters coming to volunteer, because we're doing a better job, I feel, as Ducks Unlimited, showing that Ducks Unlimited is not just hunters. I mean, if we were just doing things for hunters, we're missing 80% of really what we do. I mean, the clean water stuff that we're able to do with, heck, we're dealing with floods right now. I mean, I hear the water hitting my house. I mean, Lake Charles is flooding right now. That's a major thing that we do with our wetlands, that's not hunter specific. Same thing with, up in the Dakotas, we're able to do work up there that, it's helping all kind of animals other than waterfowl or migratory birds. So just kind of wanted to spin that off real quick. But to answer your question, Ducks Unlimited, we have offerings for everything from Green Wing, which is as soon as you come out of your mother's womb to go to a DU event and have that experience, all the way up to, as Mike was talking about the collegiate chapters. And that's something that's probably happened in the last 10 or 15 years, really, is getting that foothold in. So we're able to do that. They're able to start. We just rolled out some stuff with doing certificates of ecology. And Mike might be able to speak to that a little bit more than I can. We have a scholarship program for first year freshmen coming out of high school. That's something that we started, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So there's all ages. Ducks Unlimited has the ability, and we focus all throughout the United States to try to introduce these kids to Ducks Unlimited or to the outdoors, because we know as they get older, they'll understand what Ducks Unlimited is doing and what we truly do, and it's not an illusion or what you hear from somebody else. So it's a good way to engage individuals starting at a young age, so they know, just like you did, Joe. You've been exposed since you were a green wing, and you know really what we do.
Yeah, that's I didn't even know that. To me, I always assumed that it was in the rise, just because I guess it's just once you get into it, but it's like everything else. I feel like everybody gets into it, but I know a lot more waterfowlers now than I ever have. So
and I meet people a lot of times when I do a recruitment event, say for the community in Lake Charles or wherever it is. A lot of people will come up and say, "Man, I thought y'all were a clothing line," or "I thought y'all were just a sticker on the back of somebody's truck." You meet a lot of people in the recruiting, young kids or adults, that really don't know. They recognize the logo, but they don't know truly what we do and how much we do.
Okay. And that's actually really good. And that's something that I do feel that's good for kids, because I told Joe I can't take my kids duck hunt or deer hunting because they don't know how to be quiet. Right. It's different. But when I took them out waterfowling, they loved it. They had fun. The only time they had a hush up was when the birds were coming in, put their head down, whatever it may be. So I think it's a really good experience, not just for youth, but for our whole family, your wife, your kids, everybody out there. It's definitely something for me. It reminds me a lot of fishing, if that makes any sense. But because I grew up fishing, it just reminds me a lot of fishing, because you can take your kids out there, your family out there, and y'all fishing. And then waterfowl, the same thing. I'm not gonna pack my tree stand with my whole family in there, because once you get to know me, I got a football team, so it's they won't fit. But let's get into and there's something that I'm always curious about when we talk to our guests. I just kind of like, and it kind of helps me to kind of get to know a little bit more of the waterfowl community. And the experiences. So when it comes to the habitats or type of hunting habitats, what type of habitats do you guys prefer preferably? And Derrick, you can go first this time, I guess.
Well, it's being in South Louisiana. I do a lot of my hunting now in the marsh. I don't get to do what I grew up doing. I cut my teeth actually on the South Carolina coastline, doing exactly where I'm at, in the same type of habitat that I get to hunt here in Southwest Louisiana. But my favorite is, and my passion is, hunting mallards in the timber. And just because when I was in Georgia, I did not have the opportunity to get to hunt a whole lot in Georgia. So my college roommates and I would go to Mississippi and Arkansas and stuff like that, up into Missouri, hunting public lands. So that was a lot of my opportunities was chasing mallards. Not to say that I don't like sitting in the marsh with my fellow friends, but it seems like home whenever I get to go see even if a single mallard fall into the trees. It's just kind of a back to the glory days and my hard hunting, running at 4 a.m. trying to find a place to hunt. So
yeah, I think especially for me, like, to me the timber is still it brings me back. I love hunting the timbers. I may not, I don't know, this, and again, this is just from a rookie waterfowler, but I may not get as much birds that come in. Like let's say if you were in the, I don't know, the Gulf or any marsh or whatever, but To me, it does feel like it feels like I'm out there. If I was deer hunting, and we actually recently, Joe was telling me a couple guys that put deer stands up there to waterfowl hunt. I was like, that's crazy, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So, but yeah, I'm on the same boat with you as far as like in the timbers. I love that. So it's pretty. It's just interesting for me. So, and Mike, what were you?
I have a hard time selecting one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is that I have, and this is going to sound really weird given where I grew up, and people aren't going to believe me. Given where I grew up, given where I live now, I don't have a whole lot of experiences with good timber hunts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still looking for one of those. But I grew up hunting the backwaters of Grenada Lake. It's a flood control reservoir in North Mississippi, and a lot of the vegetation communities in those wetlands was primarily scrub, button willow, cypress trees, and so those obviously, whenever I'm in one of those, it brings back a lot of memories of hunting with my friends and family. There were a lot of flooded, natural overbank flooding. There's something pretty cool about that natural overbank flooding, whether it be agricultural fields or some grassy areas that were dry yesterday, and you get a big rain, and then water gets out of the banks of the river. There's something. To me, there's something special about that, where you have this brand new habitat that's available, and it just seems like if you find that, the ducks just really want to be there. And of
Yeah.
course, my favorite habitat is the one where the ducks want to be, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what it is, if it's trees or
Yeah.
grass or cattail. But I've hunted in Canada a few times as well, and some of those wetlands and potholes up there are pretty cool to hunt. But and then some rice fields as well. I've been there, and so the one that takes me back to memories in my life are the scrub shrub, the button willow cypress type wetlands, but yeah, I wouldn't pass up a good timber hunt either. That's for sure.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Nice. Joe, did you have anything else?
Just one last thing. Kind of talking about going about when you're talking about the youth conservation. What are some of the upcoming like big projects here in the Southwest Louisiana for either public to see or help, or kind of knowing what DU is doing here in Southwest Louisiana?
You want to tackle that, or you want me to, Mike?
Why don't you start, Derrick? I know we traded emails on this. We have a few projects to mention. If you want to start out, and then I can contribute a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just name 5 different projects or areas that we're always focused on. The first project that I'm going to talk about is the White Lake Project. It's currently managed by the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. It's 16,000 acres, the project that we're working with. That big of an area obviously winters a lot of birds whenever it's managed correctly. And a lot of times LDWF has not had the resources to properly manage the water levels in that area. So Ducks Unlimited is going in with our partners, and we're going to put in some new structures and work with LDWF to try to better management that area, because there's a lot of waterfowl hunters that surround that White Lake area that get a lot of birds off of White Lake and utilize those same areas and those same wetlands. So that's a a huge project that we're working with our partners. Second one it's the phase 2 of our freshwater bayou. Freshwater bayou is going to be 7 to 8 miles of shoreline protection. We've already done some of that. It's going to be pretty much putting riprap on the sides of the banks. If you're familiar with and never ever ran down intercoastal waterways. I mean, those intercoastal waterways, when they were first dredged and put in, they were 100 foot, 100 foot, 150 foot wide. And now in some areas, I mean, they're 800 foot wide. So what that's doing is eating into some of those freshwater wetlands. And there's a lot of really quality wetlands along that intercoastal waterway. So Ducks Unlimited and some of our partners are going in and working on riprapping and protecting those waterways to where we don't have erosion eroding at those wetlands and taking those away from us. The third one is Kings Bayou. It's a project that we're doing down in Creole. It's a kind of a matching project. If you were to look up the Creole project, it's a huge drainage. It's flowing a lot of water into this one area in Creole. It's probably going to impact about 10,000 acres. The Kings Bayou project. We're working with the Gravity Drainage District. That's who manages those different water control structures to decide how much water to release or how much water to hold back into the whole drainage. So we have to work with those individuals very closely to properly manage those water levels, make sure we get the right structure in there for them to be able to easily manage those water levels. Another project or another area that we work with, and I don't know if y'all are familiar with it, but we have a rice stewardship program that here in Southwest Louisiana especially, it's a program that we want rice to stay on the landscape. Ducks Unlimited, or the farmers, are having a very hard time keeping rice on the landscape with commodity prices being so low and input costs being so high. So Ducks Unlimited came together with USA Rice, a lot of the big rice producers, to implement this program, the rice stewardship program. So Ducks Unlimited works directly with farmers in Southwest Louisiana to do water pump testing, to do soil testing. There's a lot of testing that we work with the farmers on to make sure they're putting on the right amount of water, they have the right equipment to utilize to make things cheaper. So that's something that we work with them on directly with the rice stewardship program. And we also work with NRCS to try to open the door for these farmers to say, okay, hey, there's a new program coming down the pipe from the USDA, and you need to talk to this guy to hopefully capitalize on this opportunity of this new money coming down for only rice producers. The last thing I'll talk about is the Louisiana Waterfowl Project. That's a project ran here in Lafayette, Louisiana by Aaron Pierce. He's a local biologist. And that's for any individuals, y'all too, me, if I had a piece of waterfowl ground that I own, excuse me, you can always go to Ducks Unlimited and those guys will come out and help you. They may be able to do a management plan for your area, or there may be some potential money through NRCS that they can say, hey, you need to go talk to these guys that you can get this structure put in for, small cost. Or if you have questions about what vegetation I need to focus on, Ducks Unlimited will come out there and look at your ground. So I think that's something that most waterfowl hunters and landowners don't, utilize or don't know about.
Yeah, I think that's actually really informed me. I had no idea that DU was doing all that just from looking at the outside in. So I'm glad you kind of spoke on that, especially in the Mississippi Flyway there in Louisiana. I know there was some issues last year with the hurricanes and stuff. So hopefully everything gets back up how it was. But
and Mike can probably allude to some of that stuff in more details, more so than I can. So
Actually, I was going to say that I'm glad you went first because you did a better job covering that than I ever could. And so that's good. There's probably no need for me to add anything to what Derrick said regarding those projects in Louisiana, unless y'all have any specific questions. He did a fantastic job describing those at a big picture. But Ducks Unlimited has been involved in hundreds of projects in Louisiana. I actually did a quick internet search here not too long ago and found something. One of the funding sources for a lot of the projects that Derrick mentioned is the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. And as an example of the reach that federal program has for Louisiana Wetlands Conservation, I think the date of this document, this little summary, was 2018. There have been over 74 North American wetland conservation projects in Louisiana, bringing over $58 million to Louisiana wetlands conservation and restoration, and bringing with that matching funds on the order of $150 million and affecting nearly 800,000 acres. So Derrick mentioned just a small number of projects. There are dozens and over hundreds of projects that have been implemented there in Louisiana, and that's just Louisiana. I know some of your audience is going to be in Texas and even farther than that, but Texas has some similar projects and programs. The analog, if you will, for the Louisiana waterfowl project that Derrick mentioned in Texas is going to be the Texas Prairie Wetlands Project. It's primarily a coastal project, and I think there's probably, I know at one time there was an East Texas waterfowl project. I'm not even sure if that's still going. Derrick, do you know?
I'm not familiar with Texas at all on that.
But those are private land, wetland restoration and enhancement and management programs that Derrick did a great job describing. So yeah, there's resources out there through our Ducks Unlimited biologists for public lands, for private lands, you name it, we work on it. And yeah, it's there's a lot going on.
Nice.
I'll give you a cool fact for Louisiana. That's where my knowledge is right here. But over the past, I would say 8 to 10 years, Louisiana has raised approximately $3.5 to $4 million on our event fundraising. And during that same time, look, the conservation staff has spent between $10 and $12 million on conservation projects in Louisiana. So there's not a whole lot of states out there that can say that they're spending 3 times the amount of money on conservation projects than we're raising here in Louisiana. That being said, we're a high priority area, being on the Gulf Coast. Our coastlines are very prone to erosion, so that's something that, you know, a lot of people want to focus on is trying to protect our coastline. But I think that's a pretty cool fact to let everybody know that we're spending 3 times the amount of money that Ducks Unlimited fundraises in this state. So
yeah, absolutely, that was definitely good information. And I think the information here also helps the local people in Louisiana, because I lived in Louisiana. I just recently moved back to Texas just because of getting out of the military or whatever. But I know there was a lot of questions talking to other waterfowlers down there, what was going to happen, especially with the hurricanes and all that, all the stuff that happened last year. So, Joe, you have anything?
No, I'm ready to wrap.
Y'all have any questions for us?
I don't think so, Chris, other than just thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk about waterfowl, wetlands, Ducks Unlimited. As I said, kind of midway through this or at the outset, there's any number of these topics that we could select and talk about for multiple hours. But yeah, I know you don't have a multi-hour podcast here, and we're probably not at the end of the day not in the mood to do that either. So, but thank you guys.
No, absolutely, and I really appreciate you too, Derrick. Thank y'all for coming on the show. I do want to thank DU and just for my experience as a new waterfowler, I definitely would recommend any new waterfowler who doesn't have anybody or is lucky enough to have somebody like Joe, or it's probably a curse that I know Joe, but but you know, I definitely would look them up. They're a great community. I will say the waterfowl community has probably been the most helpful community I've ever dealt with, and that's the God honest truth. So I want to thank the Valor and Honor Outdoors for what they do for our service members. If you guys haven't checked them out, please go to flywayconnections.com, check them out. We have a link straight to them, or you can go to valorandhonor.com or valorandhonoroutdoors.com to go ahead and see what they do. I want to thank all the people who have so far supported us in this I guess series of mine and Joe's life. Thank Derrick and Mike once again, and like always, y'all have a good one, and let valor not fail.